to introduce you to Alex Clay, who hosted this right from the beginning. I contacted him, saw that he was getting involved, and wanted to be his co-host. So here we are, and give a nice applause for Alex Clay.
Everybody for coming out. Awesome turnout. I can just feel all that great energy from you guys all around the world today. Hope you all felt it too. So I just was going to talk about today alternatives to GMOs. I take it at this point everybody knows what a GMO is and a little bit of information on those being genetically modified organisms. They're almost in everything at this point. Monsanto has really made a key point to make sure that they take complete control over our food. But there are alternatives. Just a few of them being that do your research. Research the internet. Find anything that you can. There's lots and lots of websites with different information on how you can, on places and brands that are against GMOs and make GMO-free food. Just Local Foods sells lots of organic and non-GMO products here in Eau Claire. There's also the Menominee Food Co-op. What?
Turn it up a little bit.
Turn it up? How do you do that? I don't know. Or should I just talk louder? Is that okay? Oh, just put it closer? Okay. Did you hear everything I said before this? Okay. All right, how's that?
Woo!
All right.
Yeah, buddy.
All right. Oh, and there's a good one here. So that you can find out right away if something is GMO, there is an app for your phones.
There's actually two.
There's
Two.
I've seen two different.
Okay. All right. Well, that's even better. And that just, you scan the food and it lets you know right away whether or not it contains those GMOs. So bring that with you when you're going shopping. And look up other brands as well that also have GMOs in them, and just try to avoid those at all costs. And also learn gardening. Gardening is great. It's not only a good way to get GMO out of your diet, it's also very therapeutic to have your own garden, get out there in nature and the soil and just be a part of that whole process. And it's such a rewarding feeling, starting your seeds from little tiny seedlings and growing, and the whole experience of gardening itself is super magical, and something that you can also look into. I pretty much have covered, I think, what I was going to say. We have, like Kathy said, there are other speakers today, and stick around for those. Lots of good information. Make sure if you haven't already, there's t-shirts, there's pamphlets, and all that good stuff. Again, I just want to thank you for coming out today, and fight Monsanto!
Woo!
Okay, thank you, Alex. Those are great, great ideas. Okay, so I've got a joke for the little kids. Because I read somewhere that to lighten things up a little bit, tell a joke. Okay, but it's dirty. Is that okay?
Woo!
Okay. Alright, so I went to an organic farm the other day, and guess what I saw?
What?
I saw a healthy, happy pig eating organic feed.
Woo!
And, but he was just so fat and sassy and grunting all around, and then he fell in the mud. The organic mud. Okay. Very dirty, right? Okay, so now to the serious part. We're here today, headed by a handful of people with the March Against Monsanto, to make a statement and to join over 200,000 people, just like you and me, in 50 countries today, holding over 400 events just like this, with music and food and activities. So just to let you know that I've been active in the organizers group on Facebook with this event for some time, talking with people from New York, Hawaii, Florida, London, Oregon, Missouri, and more. Today attending in New York is 5,000 people. London, 2,000.
Woo!
On the 4 islands of Hawaii, huge masses of people are gathering to where they are taking aerial video footage.
Wow.
Rome, 622. Melbourne, Australia, 1,000. San Diego, 2,000. San Antonio, Texas, 1,000. So in Hawaii, Monsanto, I don't know if you know this, has 2,000 acres of experimental acreage that they go out into the field wearing masks, gas masks, all kinds of protection, testing this food that we're eating. The list goes on and on. This is a big deal, and Eau Claire is a part of it because of each and every one of you. Now, I know this is a complicated one. Eat this, don't eat this, but what I do know is that our food must be labeled from GMOs. I don't want to eat them anymore. And Monsanto must be stopped from corporate corruption, the lies, the cheaters, the revolving door of Monsanto employees working for the FDA and the employees from the FDA working at Monsanto. They're killing our bees, and to the very sad stories of the farmers taking their own lives in the third world countries. We don't hear about that on TV. More than 60 countries require GMO labeling. Countries like Russia and China are refusing our corn and soybeans, and even going to the extent of burning the fields in protest in Hungary. More than 60 countries require GMO labeling now. And, okay, so Monsanto has been around since 1901, making DDT, Agent Orange, PCBs, RBHT hormone, NutraSweet, and now the biggest of them all, GMOs. And I say that they're big because they're hidden. And I also believe that GMOs were only created to use more Roundup. And glyphosate is probably the most important factor in the development of the multiple chronic diseases and conditions that have now been prevalent in the westernized societies. This is what's happening, and you can't for a minute believe that this is no surprise to Monsanto. And now I've witnessed all the history of this garbage. My grandpa used DDT on his garden. It was 1930. Oh, it's safe. They tell us it's safe. My grandpa died of stomach cancer when I was 6 years old. My mom told me it was the DDT. My grandma, my mom, her only sister, and her only child, my cousin, all developed diabetes. Do you know it wasn't that long ago when we had organic family farms? I'm from one of them, south of Neillsville. My parents were both raised during the Depression. It was in the 1960s, and I remember the day my dad said, "No, we're not using pesticides on our fields." And I said, "Why, Dad?" "Because it's too expensive, and I don't want you to get near it. If it kills the weeds, it must not be good for us." So guess what we did to get rid of our weeds? We had 3 80-acre farms.
Pulled them.
That's right. We cultivated the fields with a cultivator. I say cultivator and people don't even know what it is. So anyways, that was my job, and I got a pretty nice tan sitting on the tractor. Anyways, I learned a lot from my parents to grow what we would eat for the whole winter. We planted flowers for the bees because they were pretty, too. We had berries, we raised our own meat, and we preserved all the food we needed to survive. And then guess what? It was the 70s, and the fast food generation was coming upon us. It was convenience. We went to Marshfield, and we would go to Chip's Hamburgers. We could get a pound of fries for about $1. Probably the prototype for McDonald's. But my parents didn't like to spend the money, so we didn't go too much. But my mother loved Hamburger Helper and Jiffy Pop, and I liked Trick cereal, and back then it was real food coloring, pretty toxic stuff. And then my brother liked Oscar Mayer bologna sandwiches on wholesome white bread with extra mayo. Well, there you go, folks. The big business, the big profits, the big lies, and a lot of big junk started. So, these big box grocery stores and their big box junk foods are run by big corporations, and the government is involved. Toxic BT corn and sugar beets are in everything, except organic. Cornstarch, dextrose, hidden words, MSG, corn syrup, corn oil, etc. But don't worry, my plan is to keep us networking to support and learn, and that is the theme for today. So where this comes into play is that we are going to keep this movement going. It's not going to stop. We're grassroots now. Years ago, yes, swept under the rug. But now with our social media that we have at our fingertips with Google, Facebook, live streaming, text messaging, you name it, it's not going to be undone. In the earlier part of the year, I was inspired by the Facebook page Occupy Monsanto. So I messaged the owner, Fritz Kreis, an alternative health practitioner, and I asked him what I should call a page for Eau Claire. He messaged me back, how about Occupy Monsanto Eau Claire? So there it is. Like this page, because it's where we're going to keep you all informed on the next step. And the next one planned is the 4th of July with Moms Against Monsanto. So I will be staying involved and need helpers because I believe in a non-GMO lifestyle.
Woo!
I want to, along with the event's organizers, Kathy Bryce, and all the volunteers, thank you for coming out here today to show your support. It's easy to talk about it. It's easy to Facebook about it. It's easy to like it. It's easy to email about it. But it's another thing to dedicate yourself and to come here today. This is a big deal, and each of you are making history today. We're standing up together. Hundreds of cities across our great nation and millions of people come together as we today stand up against corporate greed and control. Control of the farmers, of what seed they may or may not use, and how much they use. These control filters go all the way into our grocery stores, our shopping carts, into the homes, into our cabinets, and into the mouths that we feed. My name is Lisa Harris-Gore. I'm a businesswoman, an entrepreneur, a college instructor, a wife, and most importantly, a mother. Standing in the crowd, oh no, she's sitting in the crowd, is my daughter. I'm standing here talking with you because of her and all of the children that we hold dear. Look around you. Who do you see? Friends, family. families, neighbors, and children. We are a community, the Chippewa Valley, western Wisconsin, community against Monsanto. Let's face it, there are dangers everywhere, and some of them we cannot control. Yet the food that we eat is something that we can control. And as Kathy was stating, up until about 1940, everyone ate organic. That's all there was. Sure, people will say, well, Lisa, people today are living longer than they did 73 years ago. And I would say, yes, that's true. The development of technologies have helped. However, other technologies have poisoned the food that we eat. The numbers of cancer, diabetes, autism, obesity, neurological defects, kidney failure, liver failure, and the list goes on and on and on. These are the reasons we need to consider as we plan our family meals. If you aren't planning your family meals, consider 10 minutes a week to not only save you hundreds of dollars eating out, fast food restaurants, it can prevent thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands of dollars in health-related ailments in yours and your family's future. I'm not sharing this to scare you. I'm sharing this to encourage you. Raise your hand if you've heard about the Monsanto Protection Act. Awesome. I'm assuming that most of you know what this is, but do you know what the purpose of this act is? In case you don't know, I will share. It's a law that Monsanto has requested to protect any litigation involving health risks. I know as a businesswoman, I stand behind my products and services. Why is it that you think Monsanto needed a law to protect them? I'll tell you why. Maybe because this corporate giant has infiltrated more than 80% of major crops, 70% of all processed foods. And let's imagine your favorite grocery store. That's 70% of everything in a box, a can, a carton, or plastic, you name it. Then 80% of those crops that are in the produce section. And there isn't an area in the grocery store that isn't affected by GMO except one, and that's the organic section, or the organic stores that you so choose to purchase from. The biotech company paid $700 million in settlements only 10 years ago. $700 million, and that number has only increased since then. That's why they're asking for protection from the government. Because who are they worried about? They're worried about you. Mark my words, as my mother would say, in the next 10 to 20 years, if not sooner, you'll find more research, more illnesses, more people wanting to tell their tale about their unfortunate experiences with Monsanto and their products, just as they have in the last 10 years. Now that I've done my job as an educator, let me put it in terms to ponder over as a parent or a caretaker. Children are growing quickly. Their cells are growing at a fast rate, which in turn increases their development. When bodies don't have the right nutrients from clean, fresh fruits and vegetables, they have an opportunity to mutate. Do you know what that mutation is called? Cancer. Children have the highest rates of cancer because their cells are growing so quickly, and they need nutrients, clean nutrients. Do you know what feeds cancer? Sugar. Think about this for a moment. We have our children. Many are normal, healthy children to begin with. We start feeding them processed, genetically modified foods made with sugar, or even worse, sugar substitutes. And imagine the rates of cancer increase. While when we say health epidemic, if they are blessed with the absence of cancer, they in turn have an amazing opportunity to get diabetes. Type 2 diabetes in children is skyrocketing. Let's take action and steps towards prevention. If you have food that you want your children to eat, we need to communicate to the producers of that food to say no to GMO. Or at a minimum, label so we have a choice. We have the power to fight back. 60 nations around the world are now requiring labeling of GMO foods. In 2011, 300,000 farmers began fighting to keep a portion of our food organic. You can vote with the food you buy and where you buy it. Local places such as Menominee Market, Farmers Market, Just Local Foods, Mother Nature's Food, and the organic sections throughout the grocery stores. Are you concerned with the small amount that you may pay more now? Don't be. Because it'll save you in the end. It'll save you. from hospital bills later. It's up to us to make our individual choices. And as Tony Nagy stated in the Waking Times, we are subjects of global experiment involving our entire food system. I stand humbly before you, and I ask that we, as a community of activists, parents, and caretakers, that we as a community continue the momentum that we have on this day. Write the leaders, the politicians of our state, to the companies that provide you with food, and ask them to require GMO labeling, or even better, simply say no to GMO. Thank you.
Woo!
Judy was next, so Andrea.
You gonna get this?
Afternoon.
Great turnout. I am happy and proud to be a part of this. I have the honor of reading a speech that was written by a woman who couldn't make it today, and her name is Susan Dittler Brown, and she's been a part of the movement for quite a while now. Lovely rain. Hey, it doesn't matter, right?
I'm here anyway.
Okay, so she writes, I wrote up some taking points in case of opportunity arose, but it looks like I won't be able to attend the march. So I'm passing them along in case they are of help to someone else attending. Feel free to use it any way helpful. Hundreds of thousands of people in over 49 countries are marching against Monsanto today in over 400 events. I joined them together as a grandmother. I'm no expert, but my concern for my kids and grandchildren has sparked a desire to learn all that I can about the issues of GMOs. What is GMO? In simple terms, genetically modified organisms are genetically engineered or created through gene splicing in a laboratory. It's nothing like hybridization. It merges DNA from different species, creating combinations of plant, animal, bacterial, viral, and even human genes to produce species that cannot occur in nature, and they are exchanging their genetic information in the wild. I guess Monsanto never heard the phrase, don't mess with Mother Nature. Over 40 genetically engineered crops are sold in the United States. GMO food has been shown in studies to cause many health problems. The reason these are not more independent studies is the FDA does not conduct studies, and the GMO companies like Monsanto all require any buyers of their seed to sign a contract that the seed will not be used for any research. Still, there are valid studies that show links between consumption of genetically engineered food with liver, heart, kidney damage, fertility problems, and more. There's an increase in autism, which is very unsettling. In 1980, only 1 in 10,000 children had autism. 95, 1 in 500. 2001, 1 in 250. 2007, 1 in 150. And in 2013, 1 in 50 children have autism now. Commercial sale of genetically modified foods began in 1994. Do the math. How long before every single child has autism? Breaking news, a story on CBS News Atlanta, not my favorite for news, on May 18th stated, according to a study conducted by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, up to 20% of American children are suffering from mental disorders such as ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, anxiety, depression, and autism, 1 in 5 children. One problem is that the insidious occupation of research facilities by Monsanto. Scientists have found problems with GMO are let go. Just one example of many is research scientist Dr. Elaine Ingram, who is formerly an associate professor at Oregon State University. Her research on genetically modified organisms led her to being forced to resign. The biotech industry, led by Monsanto, funds a large part of the budget for Oregon State University, and her findings were not welcome as it threatened the university's funding. And I haven't even mentioned the health dangers of Monsanto's widely used pesticide Roundup. Look that one up. Roundup glyphosate has been linked to over 29 diseases according to peers' research studies, including DNA damage, cancer, hormonal disorders, Parkinson's, autism, infertility, and allergies. And our lovely EPA just raises the limits in our foods. Monsanto even stated, and I quote, "There is no need for or value in testing the safety of GM foods in humans." On their own website, this statement has recently been removed, but it's still on archives.org. GMO affects DNA, our cells, our gut, our health, and has been found in embryos and infants. Sorry. There are also studies that show GMO foods are lower in nutritional value, and GMOs are found in more than 85% of grocery store items, including infant formula and baby foods. Today, GMOs are found, Recently, a team of top scientists discovered an organism associated with the rise in plant diseases in Roundup Ready. Corn and soybeans, which form the foundation for animal livestock feed in the U.S., the organism is observable only by an electron microscope and was previously unknown to science. I didn't know about that, but it scares the living daylights out of me. This is insanity. Dr. Don M. Huber, one of the senior scientists in the U.S., has alerted the FDA, federal government, to a newly discovered organism related to GM crops that may cause plants death and infertility and spontaneous abortion in animals fed GM crops. He describes this dangerous new creature as microfungal-like organism, the first such microfungus that has ever been seen or identified, a new species. He's written to the USDA Secretary Tom Vilsack, and urged his immediate reply to this issue, but don't get your hopes up. Vilsack has been a strong supporter of genetically engineered crops and biopharmaceuticals and has even won awards from the biotech industry. Perhaps my biggest concern is that genetically engineered crops are cross-pollinating our heirloom and native crops to the point of extinction. That is their plan, to control the world's food. 75% of seed diversity has already been lost to industrial farming. When they finally admit that GMO is bad for us, it may be too late. We're also losing bees and other pollinators. The European Union passed a continent-wide restriction on the use of bee-harming pesticides. Here in the United States, policymakers are yet to address the issue, which is no surprise. And the beekeepers in this country report record-breaking bee losses this year alone of 40 to 50% and more. And it's not just bees. Butterflies, birds, and many other species are dying off. Albert Einstein said, and I quote, "If the bees disappear from the surface of the earth, man would have no more than 4 years to live." We need to contact federal representatives and tell them to support the repeal of Monsanto Protection Act, proposed by Senator Jeff Merkley as an amendment to the upcoming Farm Bill. The provision, which basically makes Monsanto sue-proof and I don't know this word. I'm sorry. Basically, they tucked it into their budget legislation in March and was signed into law by President Obama. It lets Monsanto and other biotech ignore the court orders designed to protect other farmers, the environment, and human health. If you will check, many Monsanto people are now employed by the FDA and other divisions of the federal government. They come from Monsanto, including Michael Taylor, Vice President and former head of Monsanto's Washington, D.C. office, who was just appointed by Obama as the Senior Advisor and Deputy Commissioner of the FDA. Monsanto money flows like water to our politicians' pockets as well. As we hope you all will show your support of the proposed genetically engineered food labeling bill that Senator Barbara Boxer, Democratic California, and Representative Peter DeFazio, Democrat of Oregon, have introduced to the Senate of the House of Representatives. We will need to show massive support of it or this will fail. The Genetically Engineered Food Rights to Know Act will give us a choice in what we need to feed our families. It will not cause food prices to go up, as the Monsanto machine touted during Proposition 37 campaign. It's a simple label. A national ABC News poll last summer showed 93% of the public believes that government should require labels on food that have been genetically modified. They're buying up all the seed companies, planting seeds, and even human genes. You aren't supposed to be able to patent life, right? It's absurd to allow companies to patent living organisms, especially when those patents to monopolize the world's seed for food production. 93% of soy, 86% of corn, 90% of canola, and 93% of the cotton grown in the United States is all GMO. They have even developed a terminator seed designed so it will not produce seeds at the end of its cycle. Purpose being that farmers could not reuse their seeds, so Monsanto can stick it to them every single year. Can you imagine what would happen to our food supply if that got loose and cross-pollinated with everything else? They want to monopolize all food, but they forget that if they destroy our food, and bees won't have any customers at all. They do not have the right to play God. One more. It's a little wet.
You're awesome.
Okay. They have been the cause of hundreds of thousands of farmers committing suicide from going bankrupt. Basically, expensive GMO crops that would produce more crops and require less pesticides and herbicides. In truth, it produces less at a time, full crop failures, requires more pesticides and herbicides as pests and weeds grow more and more resistant. Remember that this is the same company that created DDT, Agent Orange, PCBs, dioxin, aspartame, and the more, and lied all about them. Now, if you don't hate them yet, that's a strong word. Think about this. Say you run a nice organic farm. You carefully plant your non-GMO crops, but a factory farm down the road cross-pollinates your precious organic crops. Well, okay, you think that, well, I'll just sell the GMO company, and say no to them. But then Monsanto will sue you for the patent infringement and collect all your profits and damages. I think Monsanto should be sued for trespassing. To learn more about GMOs, look for many Facebook pages and groups. Google GMO dangers from many websites. Our best defense is to buy organic, grow a garden, avoid genetically engineered foods, vote with your dollars, hit them in their pocketbooks. There's a new phone app that lets you know you can scan what is GMO called Boycott. There will be someone who will not want to listen.
Too.
Yep. There will be many who don't want to listen. They are in comfortable denial. We must keep letting people know, bringing them into the light. We do it for the love of our children and the love of our planet. They are destroying our health and ecosystems. There are millions with us. We must fight as if our lives depend on it, and if we don't stop them soon, it will be too late. We don't have a planet B to go to. Educate your family and friends, and bring us more warriors for the fight against Monsanto. So Monsanto, if you are listening, you do not have my permission to use my body or my family as a science experiment. I will now close with a quote from Willie Nelson, who founded Farm Aid. Our food system belongs in the hands of many family farmers, not under the control of a handful of corporations. I was going to add a bit about how much money Monsanto spent to defeat Proposition 37 and how they're threatening to sue the states that have labeling propositions up for vote. I want to thank all the wonderful people who are attending this march. I will be with you in spirit. I also want to shout out to Tammy Cannell, founder of MAM, Josephine Perulli, who I think is a San Diego March Against Monsanto coordinator, Diana Reeves, our fearless leader of GMO Free USA. And a big thank you to all the tremendous organizations, websites, Facebook, Twitter pages, and YouTube video producers for helping to educate us all. I have met some great warriors on this fight and look forward to the day where we can sit back and drink nice organic drinks and say, we have won.
Woo!
Thank you.
That was awesome.
I think you got it. Excuse me.
Oh, pardon me. You want to film this? My hands. It might not be the best footage, but the audio is what really counts. Let's start with shape and singing.
You didn't see my legs.
Oh, no.
Hi everybody, my name is
Really
Robin.
good, babe.
I am so happy that you all joined us today. This is an awesome turnout. I'm starting to feel kind of alone on Facebook, and then I've seen Kathy and Alex and the March Against Monsanto, and it's been awesome. I am so happy to be here today. So I got a little, sorry about that. I got a little bit about the history here of Monsanto. Before genetically modified foods were introduced, FDA scientists warned that GMOs might result in allergies, toxins, new diseases, and nutritional problems. Still, the FDA policymaker Michael Taylor, former Monsanto VP and current FDA food safety czar, released GMOs for use without a single safety study. Years later, it looks like these FDA scientists were right. The American Academy of Environmental Medicine say that the animal studies show that GMO food is linked to infertility, immune problems, accelerated aging, organ damage, and gastrointestinal problems. They are now urging all doctors to prescribe non-GMO diets to everyone. I will read in part the statement from AAEM. When an activity raises threats to the environment or human health, precautionary measures should be taken. I'm having difficulty here.
Maybe turn her up a little more.
No, this will be good.
Yeah, that works.
When the activity raises threat to the environment or human health, precautionary measures should be taken. Even if some cause and effect relationships are not fully established scientifically. In this context, the proponent of activity, rather than the public, should bear the burden of proof of the safety of the activity. With a precautionary principle in mind, because GMO foods have not been properly tested for human consumption, and because there is ample evidence of probable harm, the AAEM asks,
1. Physicians to educate their patients, the medical community, and the public to avoid GM foods when possible, and provide educational materials concerning GM foods and health risks. 2. Physicians to consider the possible role of GM foods in the disease processes of the patients they treat, and to document any changes in patient health changing from GM food to non-GM food. 3. Our members, the medical community, and the independent scientific community to gather case studies potentially related to GM food consumption and health effects. Begin research to investigate the role of GM foods on human health and conduct safe methods of determining the effect of GM foods on human health. For a moratorium on GM food, implementation of immediate long-term independent safety testing and labeling of GM foods, which is necessary for the health and safety of consumers. Some of this was already covered, but I only got a couple more paragraphs here to read. So, GMOs are genetically modified organisms where genes are taken from one species and forced into the DNA of other species. Regardless of what genes are inserted, the process of creating GMO results in massive collateral damage in the plant, which can increase toxins, allergens, carcinogens, and anti-nutrients. The only human feeding study shows that GM genes may remain inside us long after we stop eating GMOs. There are very limited safety studies of GMOs. The ones that do exist are funded by the biotech companies themselves. Independent studies that have discovered problems with GM foods have resulted in scientists being threatened and fired from their jobs. There isn't enough data to link GM foods to a particular disease, but experts such as the AAEM believe that they are a significant contributor to many serious health problems that are on the rise since the GMOs were introduced in 1990. Now these GMOs are present in 80% of conventional processed foods. In fact, Monsanto plans to replace all crops with their patented GM crops. All over the world, people have observed and reported that livestock and wildlife, when given the choice, will avoid GM foods and opt for the natural counterpart. As humans, we need to help determine how to avoid GMOs. We urge everyone to vote with your dollar and force them out of the market. You can also visit non-GMOshoppingguide.com. Look for the non-GMO Project Verified label and download the Shop No GMO iPhone app. Please get involved and spread the word to others that may not be aware of the real dangers of GM foods. It's time to take back our food.
Woo!
Okay.
Wait, Rick, you're last.
What?
You're last.
Oh, okay.
Is Andrew Worthman here?
He's right over there.
Can't get out of it.
We're here.
Am I speaking then? I don't know.
everyone, thanks for coming, and it's really exciting to. Do I have to do something with this? It's really exciting to see such a great crowd down here today. I got asked to just give a few words about what we're doing out here, and I got to thinking last night about kind of what the garden means, community gardening means to this movement. And at least in my opinion, what is happening down here, over last year and the year before, we've had over 1,000 people come down and put their hands in the soil and plant seeds and be a part of what really is a revolution down here. And you think about, the fact that this was an abandoned neighborhood, and just down, where Queens Park and that area is where the farmers market is, these areas were industrial, and to think that this is being reclaimed, and that, by all accounts, most stores will tell you that their seed and their plant sales have doubled in the last couple of years. It really feels like there's something afoot that is saying, we don't trust necessarily where our food is coming from right now, but we trust in ourselves, and we trust in putting our hands in the soil and planting a seed. And that's what this community garden is all about. We have 50 rental plots here for families and individuals that want to rent a plot, but we also do what we call the shared garden, and it's a whole group of us that tend to this garden together, and a number of you guys are part of it too. So what's wonderful about it though is this is an area of this community that has struggled for a long time, this neighborhood here, and the changes that we have seen in just the past couple years, a lot of the households that are here are a part of this garden. And we have over 50 people already signed up and are a part of our shared garden here, planting seeds together. And what we do is we all plant together, we work together, we harvest together, and if we have extras, we bring it to the community table. And for those of you that don't know community table, it's a place where if people need, they can go get a free meal every day. And so